Ladies and gentlemen, we have with us Mr. Pradeep Dwivedi, who's the CEO of Sakal Media. In fact, as a leading independent media group of the country, Sakal has a dynamic media portfolio that includes print dailies, magazines, television, digital, online business, as well as the on-ground activations and innovative media solutions businesses. So prior to taking up the role as the CEO of Sakal Media, he was also the Chief Corporate Sales and Marketing Officer at the Dainik Bhaskar Group. Ladies and gentlemen, can we have a round of applause to welcome on stage our next speaker, Mr. Pradeep Dwivedi.
Hi, good evening, everybody. I know I'm the 12th speaker today, if you count all the people on the panel and all the interesting discussions that we've had all day. I think I can't disagree with anything that everybody has said so far, which is to talk about business results being the ultimate measure of how brands succeed in the marketplace, and all of the efforts around advertising, planning, media planning, and creative really revolving around that ultimate result, which is the way the needle moves on sales numbers. I think this ecosystem and our understanding of the overall marketing fraternity is so urban-centric in our marketing context that beyond the traditional markets that we look at in our urban centers, when we start looking at tier 2, tier 3 cities, and deep pockets of consumers beyond these centers, I think our traditional metrics and our traditional mindset and our traditional approach of looking at this business starts failing. And I think that is what I would like to address in the next 10 to 15 minutes that I have. I'd indulge for your patience. But before we move into emerging India and what really emerging India wants to talk about, let's talk about something that's been very interesting for all of us in the last 10, 15 days. No, I'm not talking about Cyrus Mistri's exit from Tata's. I'm not talking about Arnab leaving Times Now. I guess he's going to be on in a short while, so you'll get to hear from, well, quote-unquote, horse's mouth himself. Let's talk about the American elections, and I think it's been an exciting and interesting period for all of you. I want to ask all of you by show of hands, before the results came out and now we know what the results are, how many of you thought that Hillary Clinton was going to be the president, the 45th president, and the first woman president of the United States of America? Just by a show of hands. I certainly did. And I think the majority of people in this room did too. But when you look at the results, it's been so outstandingly different and so shocking for a lot of us in India, and I'm sure for a lot of the people in the United States and across the world as well, that we find it hard to believe that in spite of all the analytics, all the mathematics, all the ROI, all the audience measurement systems that they had, how could they get it so wrong? What was fundamentally different in the assessment of the Democratic campaign versus the Republican campaign that they failed to read the tea leaves or failed to read the flow of the wind? You know, there is an adage that says, and I'd like to quote here, the power of the people is so much more stronger than the people in power. You know, when you are the Democratic Party candidate coming after a strong showing of President Obama for the last 8 years, you tend to ride on a high. You tend to believe that you know what is best and what is desired by the people of the United States. I think if you look at the entire Hillary campaign, I think all of us would agree this whole Stronger Together campaign was so urban-centric, so germane in the needs of people to be right by way of rights of women, by rights of LGBTs, by rights of the minorities, whether they be black or Hispanics. It did not read the reality of what was going on in the marketplace. I think the campaign raised billions of dollars. They had Jay-Z and Beyonce and what have you, every kind of pop star coming in and talking about and supporting Hillary and, you know, clapping for them. And you all saw it on television and thought, hey, this is the lady, this is the person that's going to win. And on the other hand, the decks, the cards that were laid out were completely incorrect. And that's kind of been known to all of us right now, and we know what the results are. So what worked for Donald Trump? I think there are a lot of theories, and I think there is no end to the theories. But I think first we must reflect and ponder upon the fact that the Hillary campaign clearly was living in its own world. It was living in something called as an echo chamber. I think why I'm alluding to that is because as marketers who run brands, we sometimes tend to get ourselves closeted into these chambers, do not think beyond what we hear as responses from social media and from responses of what our current ecosystem is telling, which is largely urban-centric, which then misses out on a larger audience that is there on the ground. I think what was the most important thing done by Donald Trump is that he invested in hats that said, or caps that said, "Make America Great Again," actually made those caps in the US and went out to the smallest of states with the largest of rallies and really connected with the audience. The whole sum and substance of his campaign was around connecting with the larger masses who were not getting addressed and not getting connected to. I think as marketers, we a lot of times fall into the same trap where we want to be successful, we want our brands to succeed and do really well, and we want the sales numbers to move, but we don't look beyond our noses in terms of data and metrics that are being put to us and don't go out discovering what is there in the marketplace. And I think that process of discovery becomes extremely crucial for any brand that's wanting to succeed. So what worked for Trump? Clearly, we know, they did everything right, whether it's the hats or it is traveling to all of these upcountry markets. So the core theme on which I'm going to spend a few minutes from now talking about is how do you use a grassroots emotional engagement to really connect your brand with your audience. All of the metrics, all of the ROI measures that traditionally has worked for brands for ages starts feeling challenges when it starts moving beyond the urban centers and going into the rural markets. I think we had marketers confessing as much. We heard Anuradha talking about the fact that in markets of UP and Bihar, with the media darkness prevailing still and media penetration being so low, it is extremely difficult for her to get resonance for the brands that already is being used by 1 out of 3 Indians, or 2 out of 3. I guess it was 1 out of 3. Okay, let's roll with that. So the establishing a connect with brands is largely about making sure that you are actually reaching out to the audience, that you are having a message that is very cogent going out to all of these, and this is something that has been proven not just in this election in the United States. In 2014, exactly the same thing happened in India, where when we are gearing up for recall or recognition of a brand, it is the connect with the grassroots, the connect with the reality of the land that really determines how the brand will do well. So basically, there can be 2 kinds of marketing approaches. There could be a broadcasting and there could be a narrowcasting. If you look at almost all the marketing approaches that are there today, the traditional client-agency relationship, client-media relationship, it's all about broadcasting. It's all about spray and pray. It's all about saying, what is the maximum reach that I can get? And then I believe that there is a heuristic equation which links the reach to a certain number of audience and the audience in terms of response and response in terms of desire, thereby creating demand for my product. The point is, unless you are engaging with the client at a very direct level, which may have cost repercussions which are different from the metrics that we would traditionally look at, your brand is not likely to create an empathy, it is not likely to create a recall. So if you look at statistics, when you're unwell, a lot of us go to internet and try and figure out what the ailment could be and what medicine could treat it if there's a minor ailment. But the next step, logically, is that we ask friends and family of what worked for them and really go with that. You can do all kinds of advertising, you can have all kinds of information on the internet, and yet it is the credibility of a friend or a neighbor telling you what the brand is all about or what the cure is all about that you really end up trusting. So the magic really happens when you have one-on-one engagement. And I think that is where there is a lot of value for marketers coming from regional media, which is what a lot of Indian media houses represent, and which offers a very different kind of audience engagement than what you see traditionally in the current context of media planning. So I'll skip over some of these detailed slides, but I'll talk about the 6 mantras that will really make a brand work wonders in the marketplace. The first and foremost is, if you really want to make a success in emerging India, you need to have great local insights, and that insights will come by actually spending time on the ground. The next is to really identify the outreach audience that you really want to target, move on to sharpen the message, work with credible partners, build the entire program, and then scale up and win. It sounds simplistic saying that, but I'm going to support it with some of the examples that will lead you to believe what the value of this approach is and how it can deliver substantial results to the brand that is trying to promote itself. So gain on local insights, which essentially means that India is such a complex country with over 70 strong languages, with its own regional flavors of festivals that are different in different parts of the country. Your standard approach of having a Holi Diwali calendar plan and a Holi Diwali approach to business is not going to work any longer. You need to build a sensitivity of what the local audience wants, what is their level of awareness, what is the kind of brand preference that they are likely to adopt for, and then customize your marketing address to them. Identify the core audience that you want to get out to. You cannot possibly cover every segment in the market in a single swathe. There are pockets of young audience, there is youth, there is women which is empowered by way of having financial independence or some level of education. There are women who are not privileged with education and income patterns, and you need to look at that audience differently. So basically, once you slice the audience clearly enough, then you have a marketable or an actionable market plan that can really go forward. sharpen the message. I think this point cannot be emphasized often enough. I mean, if you look at the grand success of the Prime Minister's Modi campaign in 2014 and the resultant success that we had, and we have the privilege of Mr. Balsara here, who did the media campaign, and Piyush is not here, but he did the entire creative element of that campaign, Ab Ki Baar Modi Sarkar, that went through. It really touched a feeling inside the entire country that a lot of people in urban areas were not willing to subscribe to. I think when the final results came out, a lot of us were actually shocked by the kind of victory and the number of Lok Sabha seats that BJP and its allies ended up winning, simply because we were not open enough to recognize the fact that that's the way the wind was blowing in the real parts of India. And I think that understanding helps sharpening the message, and that then takes the message forward. A smart marketer really, knows the brand. I mean, it knows what the business is, what the product is, and the kind of company and distribution that it has. But ultimately, it all boils down to the audience. And I think as audiences mature, Umang very clearly pointed out the fact that mobile is the new way, and there is a lot of awareness through multimodal access, whether through television or through mobile access or through regional print dailies. The audience is becoming a lot more aware. And it is very important that we understand this audience completely if we have to make a success of reaching out our brand and taking that forward. Once you've understood the audience, what a brand really needs to do is to have a trusted partner that can represent their campaign in that marketplace. I think that is where the regional media does a fabulous job of actually understanding the brand needs and connect with the audience, with which it has great credibility. I mean, you go 200 kilometers away from any urban center and talk to the people in those areas in tier 2 cities, tier 3 cities, you will find that the local paper is seen as the most credible source. With the whole genre of breaking news coming on television all the while, the credibility of TV news takes a certain amount of beating, but papers remain reasonably credible even in today's date. And that really tells the story of what is the right medium to select when you're trying to build up local engagement. Building a program that is very strong, which adopts traditional approaches of meetings, but then looking at something innovative, street plays, looking at specific community-related actions, whether it is with women or with children, that allows you to convey your message in a very clear fashion, helps a brand to kind of take it forward. And clearly, lastly, you have to scale up to win. I think that's something that a lot of regional players do. I'm not going to quote too many examples, but I really want your attention to do with the fact that almost all regional players have strong programs of connecting with specific segments of audiences, whether it is women, whether it is women in financially better sectors, whether it is the youth, whether it is the population that is self-employed professionals, as well as the salaried class. And I think it is extremely important that we take these segments separately and look at the activation, engagement, connect with the audience program. And not all of it will be driven by technology, which is why the core theme that I'm trying to put forward is that technology will only take you so far. But if you have to break the barrier of technology and really connect with the audience, you really need to go local. You really need to be in touch with the pulse of the nation, with the pulse of the audience, and that is what will make you succeed. There are multiple success stories and examples in women's segment and in case of youth, where brands have shown and brands have reaped the benefit of the fact that they have gone with the regional media operator who has then connected the audience to them in a very unique way. And I think I'd urge all the marketers to give it a very serious thought. I know it's very, excuse my saying so, but very sexy and very jazzy to talk about all the phenomenal cross-media metrics that you get and the numbers that you run and the analytics that you run, and I'm not shying away from any of that. All of that has tremendous importance for every single dollar and cent that gets spent in marketing. But I think let's get real. Let's get real with what the real India is and what the real India expects. And any brand that takes that bold step of stepping out of its comfort zone of sitting in an office and looking at a media plan and signing it off basis a cost and a CPM metric to a stage where we are actually on the ground, working with an on-ground partner and making sure that you're connecting with the audience, those are the brands that are going to really see the success, and those are the brands that are going to be sustainable in the long run. That's all I had to say. I think it's a time that brands partner with regional medias to win. Thank you so much. I ran through the entire presentation pretty quickly because I'm mindful of the time. But if anybody has a question that you'd like me to address, I'd be happy to take that, perhaps just one or two. All right then, so I think people are still making up their mind. If you have questions, I'm still around. I'd be happy to take them on. Thank you very much. Have a great evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you.
Thank you very much.